This is a Rough Tiger production.
And you, and you, and you, and you were there. Some of it wasn't very nice, but most of it was beautiful.
Howdy.
Hello. Hello, Brian. Hello, listeners. Welcome to another installment of Dream Idiots.
Yes, welcome back. How are you?
I'm doing well. It's a beautiful rainy day here in Colorado,
Excellent.
and time keeps rolling on.
It's gonna be Christmas again in no time, isn't it? Just drives me crazy.
It is. It is.
Christmas, Christmas, Christmas.
Each week here at Dream Idiots, Brian and I tell each other stories or rattle off ridiculous stuff, effort to entertain each other and drag you along for the ride. Would you say that's a fair assessment of the situation, Brian?
I think that's pretty accurate. We still haven't quite figured out whether or not this is a podcast for Dream Idiots or whether we are the Dream Idiots. But either way, we appreciate you listening and tagging along with us. You can check us out at dreamidiots.com. We're on Facebook and Instagram at Dream Idiots. You can drop us a line if you want, dreamidiotspodcast at Gmail. And if you can, go on whichever platform you're on, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podchaser, all the ones that are out there, and give us a 5-star review and make a comment in there. That'd be great. That helps us apparently climb the charts or something. So that'd be appreciated.
And we do have some t-shirts and merch up, including some brand new Rough Tiger Productions shirts. Is that correct?
Yeah, added the logo for Rough Tiger is up there now. If you wanted to get that on a myriad of products, and then because we started up a meetup group for podcasters in Texas, we also have artwork now up for these what's called the Central. It was now called the Central Texas Podcast Collaborative. If you happen to be if you're in the sound within the range of my voice, and you are in Central Texas, and you are a podcaster or you're considering getting into it, or you're looking for a guest or wanting to be a guest, we have a little fledgling group of folks that we do a monthly event. Next one's coming up. Actually, the next one's coming up will be we'll have just missed when this episode comes out. There'll be more in July, usually in sort of downtown San Antonio, but we're probably going to add some more events in New Braunfels and probably elsewhere. So you want to learn about podcasts and what that's all about, feel free to find us on Facebook. There's a Facebook thread for it.
Very cool. And as we continue on each and every week, Brian gets to start off when we have an odd numbered episode. And Brian, it is episode 117.
All right, so this is a story I am calling "This End Up." You have
no.
certainly he's already moaning. You certainly have heard tales over the years, I'm sure, of people being stowaways on ships or trains or sometimes planes. It seems like it's a fairly common occurrence throughout history. Even in present time, people are trying to cross a border, or they have no money and they're trying to get home, or they're just trying to escape a terrible situation. Back during the 50s, early 60s, it feels like there are lots of cases of stowaways, people trying to escape from Cuba, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
Did you also know that people will attempt to ship themselves?
I had heard tell of this happening on more than one occasion. Yes.
I maybe I'd heard this a little bit in passing. Again, because the scattershot approach we have to telling stories and kind of the weird way I think you and I both attack sort of doing research and kind of coming across different ideas. I went down this rabbit hole of people shipping themselves. And this is a way more common occurrence than you would think. This is, thousands of times a year, probably tens of thousands of times a year, just in the US. UPS, FedEx, the mail service, DHL are, deal with this issue. It is apparently now expressly illegal to do this for obvious reasons because it's not safe. But that doesn't prevent people, who are desperate they have no money and they're trying to get home, or they're doing it as a joke, or to make a point, or to save a buck, or who knows what. So, I'm going to tell a few stories related to this topic area. Prior to the 1950s, I mean, very early part of the 20th century, this was actually a reasonably common occurrence to find children. I mean, children were shipped to the grandparents for the summer using the mail service. This was done because the guidelines at the time were a little bit vague, and the mail service stipulated that packages under 50 pounds could be sent that way. And so if you went to the post office and Mildred was whatever, a 5 or 6 year old, and she only weighed 48 pounds, guess what, Mildred? Hop in the bin with the packages. You're off to see grandma, and we'll see you. We'll see you in a few weeks. And the child would just tag along with the postman until they got to the right address, I guess. So, a couple more detailed examples. There's an Austrian tailor guy named Hermann Zeitung. He's actually known for doing this, known for his human male stunts in the 1890s. Yeah, he decides he wants to go to the World's Columbian Exposition in Chicago in 1893. So he ships himself there, and he makes it there in time. He's actually joined another Austrian, had the exact same idea. A guy named Ignaz Lefkowitz did the same thing. I may actually do an episode, a full blown episode just on Zeitung, because the guy, not only did he ship himself several times, was a loon in several other bizarre and nearly fatal ways. A couple different suffragettes in the UK, Elspeth Douglas McClellan and Daisy Solomon, mailed themselves to 10 Downing Street, the famous residence of the Prime Minister of the UK. And again, apparently they just walked into a post office and said, 10 Downing Street. Okay, what are you shipping? Me. And they were, get in the wagon. This is 1909, so I'm not quite sure what the vehicle was for their conveyance, but they were taken all the way to 10 Downing Street. They were the delivery was refused. They were going because they wanted to discuss women's rights and voting rights, and the Prime Minister H. Asquith didn't have any interest in discussing these issues with them at all. Refused the parcel, but he was apparently quite amused by all of it. Apparently the most famous case is a guy named Henry Brown. Henry was born in 1816 in Virginia as a slave, and he wants to go to Pennsylvania, which is a free state. So this is obviously just prior to the Civil War, and somehow, I don't know, the details are a little bit sketchy here. Somehow he has, as a slave, he has a connection to abolitionists in Philadelphia. He's in northern Virginia, so 150 miles away. So not too terribly far. And so in order to get out of work one day, he intentionally pretty severely burns his hand. So he has an excuse not to work, and has himself packaged into a crate with a blanket, a few biscuits, a tiny bit of water, and he is shipped by a company called the Adams Express Company, which apparently has now evolved into an investment firm. But they were known for maintaining the privacy of their clients. The shipping cost for Brown was $86 in $1849, which is like $2,500 today.
Pretty expensive. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but he's a slave. He's trying to get the hell out of there. The trip took 27 hours. He had one air hole. He was in a wooden crate that was 3 feet by 2 feet by 2 feet 8 inches.
Oh my God.
Somehow he made it. I mean, and as far as I know, he had a torso and appendages. So I don't know, how he folded himself in there for 27 hours, but he managed to do it. So again, this is just prior to the American Civil War, but at this time it was completely legal to basically have you could send bounty hunters, I guess, to come and find escaped slaves. So if you made it to the North, you weren't necessarily, automatically free. It was completely legal for your owner, your master, to send people to look for you. If they found you, they could basically kidnap you and take you back to your slave owner. Henry knows this, and so he very quickly hops on a ship to England, lives in England for a good long while until after the Civil War. Works there as a teacher and a lecturer. The guy is apparently incredibly smart and well read. After the Civil War, he comes back to America, and again in America, he's well known as an abolitionist speaker. Later kind of becomes a bit of an entertainer or sideshow performer. Tours around with was basically a circus. He becomes friendly with Frederick Douglass, who is a little bit annoyed with him for sort of openly talking about his method of escape because it prevented
Yeah.
other folks from doing the exact Henry, shut the hell up, right? This other people can do the same thing. Anyway, so he's probably the best known. A century or so later, 1964, a guy named Reg Spears, who is Australian. He's a javelin thrower. He finds himself in England. I'm pretty sure in these days, Australia must have their own Olympic team. But at the time, even as late as 64, Australians, I guess, tried out for the England Olympic team. At least he was. And so he's in London. He tries to make the
You're not going to comment on the fact that his name is Spears and he's a javelin.
I completely missed that actually. So he tries to qualify for the team. He must not be very good because he doesn't make the team. He loses his wallet and he has no friends, no contacts, no money. So he decides, you know what? The only way I'm going to get home is to ship myself. So he gets a large crate built and ships it cash on delivery and decides, you know what? I'll figure out the money when I get there. A buddy of his, this guy named John McSorley, builds a box that is, quite roomy compared to Henry's box, 5 feet by 3 feet by 2.5 feet. He puts in some straps so Spears can kind of hold himself steady when the box is being moved around. And so Spears gets in. He has a pillow, blanket, some food, a bottle of water, an empty bottle to use in case he needs to, use the potty. And he goes back to Australia. Amazingly, he actually does make it. There are a couple of delays. There's a really awful layover in a very hot Mumbai, India, where he's in a crate, but he does survive the 3-day trip home. He lands in Perth, manages to free himself from the box, and then cuts a hole. I don't know why didn't just use a door somewhere, but cuts a hole in a wall somewhere. He steals some beer he finds in a cargo area. He had actually packed in the crate a suit, so gets out of the crate, puts on the suit, steals some beer, slips out of this hole he cut in this wall, and just walks out of the airport and hitchhikes home. And thinks, great, all good, no problem. No one found me. Doesn't really bother to tell his buddy McSorley that he's safe. And so McSorley kind of has a bit of a panic attack, and after not hearing a thing after 7 days, tells the media what happened, and so reporters start coming to look for him. So it winds up being sort of a funny story. The airline winds up completely forgiving his debt, which is kind of nice. A year later, completely inspired by Spears' story, 1965, there's a guy named Bryan Robson who is also in Australia. He'd made the trip down with a couple of buddies from Wales, but he regrets it pretty much instantly and wants to go home. Doesn't have the money to go home to Cardiff. He had heard about the story of Spears the year before and goes, you know what? I can do the same damn thing. So the buddies he traveled with built him a crate, 36 by 30 by 38 inches, so pretty damn small, and pack him in there again, this time with a hammer, a suitcase, a pillow, just 1 liter of water, a flashlight, for some reason a book of Beatles songs so he could sing to himself by flashlight, I guess, and again an empty bottle to pee in. And Robson's plan is, it's a 36-hour flight, Qantas flight from Sydney to London. 36 hours. I can do this on my head. Maybe literally. This will be just fine. The connecting flight is full, and there's not no space for the freight. So his crate is left in a storage facility and doesn't fly out as quickly as they think. He is left in this warehouse, or I'm sorry, not a warehouse, just on the tarmac for 22 hours.
Oh
Upside
God.
for 22 hours. He's left upside down as well. So, so not very comfortable. He winds up spending a total of 92 hours in the crate before anyone finds him. He, he's taken a nice long flight. Obviously, he's probably a little bit sickly. There's no sense of time. He doesn't know how how long he's been in there probably. But he knows now that he's traveled some distance. Again, he's in some warehouse, but it's whisper quiet out, outside. So he starts to move around to try to adjust his position and maybe escape from the crate because he's convinced he's in London. He turns on the flashlight, and guards in this facility see light come through the slats in this crate. And then he hears voice, turns the flashlight out. But when he does that, he drops it. So they also hear the thud from him dropping the flashlight. And then they finally find him and pull him out of there. And then he realizes, oh shit, this I'm not in London, because he realizes the guards both have American accents. So great. Where am I? He's in Los Angeles. So there was a layover, and now he's in LA. But because he's been in a crate now for nearly 4 days, he is sick. And he lost consciousness several times. Probably very easily could have died. He goes to hospital for several days, manages to recover, and then the U.S. government deports him back back to London, which is where he's trying to go anyway. So that's fine. Years later, actually, I think in the 2000s, he writes a book about the whole thing called "The Crate Escape," which is pretty
Ah.
funny. So anyway, so you've heard of the cinnamon challenge and the ice bucket challenge and things like that. Apparently now there are folks on YouTube and elsewhere that have thrown down the gauntlet and given the human male challenge. Disclaimer: Dream Idiots does not endorse the idea of wrapping yourself in bubble wrap and sending yourself to your grandparents.
No,
But
what's the opposite of endorse? No, do not do this.
that sounds really stupid and really dangerous. But nevertheless, this is the day, the days of the internet, and so people will do incredibly stupid shit just for clicks, I guess, or to be an influencer or something. So there you have it. I found this topic when I was looking for subjects for later episodes. So there are two other episodes that I'll do later on this year that are related to this a little bit. One involves a criminal who managed to successfully ship himself out of federal prison in order to escape, and then another one where an indicted criminal manages to being um, escape going to trial on really, really nasty charges, but he ships himself back to his homeland in order to escape extradition. So those are going to come up later on in 2024. Anyway, this end up.
I
Don't ship yourself.
I couldn't do it. I'm
Oh, God.
claustrophobic. There's no way I could do that. That's just
22 hours on your
it's
head. Like, okay, yeah, I give up. You caught me.
how do you not how do you not have a stroke? How do you not have a stroke
Yeah,
with that?
I will last 30 seconds. Yeah,
Let me out, let me out, let me out, let me out, let me out until
right.
oh, Bryan, that is Mm-mm-mm. Thank you, Bryan.
Yeah, yeah.
That was a globetrotting story of idiotic proportions.
Yeah, it feels like there must be some Darwin Award winners in that group. But
Oh, I imagine they've opened up some because
yeah.
something starts to smell in the warehouse. So
Right. Is that do I smell burning? What is that? Like, no, not burning. Not burning. So anyway, just a little funny diversion.
speaking of diversions, do we have a curse word of the week?
It's time for the Dream Idiot's curse word of the week.
We do. The curse word of the week this week is yogurt male. Yogurt male. Any
Is
idea?
that male like what we were just talking about, or male as
No.
in the gender?
M-A-L-E, the gender.
Is it a hippie dippy-ish guy who likes to eat yogurt?
Not
Like
quite.
a
This
okay.
is something else that comes to us from Urban Dictionary several weeks ago.
Good
We we,
God.
we discussed
Okay.
this. No, it's not gross. We discussed how the alpha male thing is a complete myth, but I thought this was sort of funny and kind of oddly specific. Uh, Apparently, a yogurt male is someone who trumps both the alpha male and the beta males and the sigma, trumps everyone, because a yogurt male is someone who is so confident and domineering over all others that he will actually consume yogurt in public in front of others, because that's what a real man does. They're not embarrassed by their yogurt consumption. Like, what? Okay, whatever.
So it's the exact opposite of what I thought it was. It's
Right.
okay. So for all you yogurt males out there,
Mm-hmm.
Bryan, I'm going to take us in a totally different direction because I'm going to get literary on
Uh-oh.
your ass. Yes. We've done several stories about books and banned books and famous lines from literature. And what I've done with this is I've collected a list of 15 final lines from famous novels. And I've tracked down the original lines before the editors got a hold of them. And so what I thought we would do is
Oh,
we
wow.
would go over these lines and talk about how they're different from and whether or not the editors did a good job or not. So I've got 15 of these
Hmm.
lines. All right.
Okay, I'm with you. Yeah.
You ready? Okay. So let's start with The Wonderful Wizard of Oz from 1900 by L. Frank Baum.
Mm-hmm.
The original line or the published line, I should say, the line that saw publication is, I am so glad to be at home again. Okay. Very simple, very sweet. As Dorothy concludes her adventures. The original line, as L. Frank Baum wrote it, was, I am so glad to be at home again, even if it is only Kansas. Yeah, I think the editors did a good job. It was a needless little slam on the state of Kansas, right? I mean, that was
Yeah.
kind of dickish on Baum's part. Number 14 from 1936, Margaret Mitchell's classic Gone with the Wind. I suspect most people have seen the movie. More people have probably seen the movie than they've read the book at this point in history, right? Do you remember the last line to this movie or to the book?
I'm sure I'll recognize it, but I'm drawing a blank right now.
Well, the classic line is, frankly, Scarlet, I don't give a damn. But the actual line is actually from the novel as published. The original line as published is, it's Scarlett O'Hara's line. After all, tomorrow is another day.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. Margaret Mitchell's original line was very, very similar. She had one extra word in it. The original line as written was, after all, tomorrow is another day, bitches.
Okay. Liar.
Number 13. Number 13, a book we've talked about many, many times in here. J.D. Salinger's classic Catcher in the Rye. Now, here's a guy who probably didn't take editorial stuff too terribly seriously. And I think he was right, because the published line as it came out was, don't tell anybody anything. If you do, you start missing everybody. Okay, very, very much in Holden Caulfield's voice that,
Right.
don't tell secrets, don't do anything like that. But he had some extra on the end there that they really should have left in. As the original ending went, don't ever tell anybody anything. If you do, you start missing everybody. And for Christ's sakes, don't shoot anybody either. Only phonies do that.
Wow, that's bizarre.
The world would have been a better place if people had left that line in, right? No John Lennon, no Reagan. Number 12. Here's a fellow who appears not once, not twice, but three times on this list. Charles Dickens from 1860.
Okay.
Perhaps my favorite Dickens novel, Great Expectations.
Uh-huh.
And
So I've never read.
okay, well, I'm going to ruin it for you. So at the end of the novel, Pip and his lost love Estella come together in the end, despite all the machinations of the evil Miss Havisham. They're finally together. It's a beautiful last line, and Dickens really needed an editor because he was a serial writer. He wrote his books that they were published in serial form in magazines and whatnot.
Right.
The final line, as published, it's a beautiful last line. I saw no shadow of another parting from her. We shall never be taken apart.
Right.
We never pass each other again. The original line, as Dickens wrote it, was, I saw no shadow of another parting from her, unless I met someone hotter, way hotter.
Yeah, he was a randy dude.
Yeah, that was probably a good call on the editor's part, right? You ever read a lot of Steinbeck? Because Steinbeck's next on our list. You ever read?
Steinbeck is one of those writers that I felt like I should have liked more, but I just found a lot of his stuff just really hard to get into.
I think of Mice and Men as probably the big one that people had to read, but the one here is from 1952, East of Eden, which we actually had to read when I was in high school, and it's a great line from a character called Lee, and he's talking to, I think it's Cal, one of the sons, and it's a wonderful line because the last line of the book is, and now that you don't have to be perfect, you can be good. Very Voltaire, right? Don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. Yeah. The original line, as Steinbeck wrote it, and I think the editors are spot on for taking this one out. And now that you don't have to be perfect, you can be good. Plus, you're hung like a horse, so you got that going for you. This next one's a long one. From 1865. This is from Lewis Carroll, Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. Okay. I'm not going to reread the same line twice. I'll start somewhere in the middle, but here's the final line as published. She, referring to Alice, she would gather about her other little children and make their eyes bright and eager with many a strange tale, perhaps even with the dream of Wonderland long ago, and how she would feel with all of their simple sorrows, and find a pleasure in all their simple joys, remembering her own child life and the happy summer days. Okay, it kind of takes us back to the beginning of the story when she falls asleep on that summer day, and
right.
The original final line had this little addendum in it. And find a pleasure in all their simple joys, remembering her own child life and the happy summer days, before the long nights of smoking herself stupid in opium dens. Up next at number 9, one of your favorites from 1949, George Orwell's 1984. Do you remember the final line to this book? It's a hell of a last line. 4 words, simple, referring to Winston Smith. He's the he in this. The final line is, he loved Big Brother. Winston has been totally broken down, and he loved Big Brother. Brilliant. Orwell had to be reined in because his final line originally was, he loved Big Brother. I mean, loved him, like really, really loved him. Winston and Big Brother sitting in a tree. Kissing. Good job, editors, pulling that back like that. Another one of your favorites from 1954, William Golding's Lord of the Flies. I know you like this book.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember what the final line is or what happens in the final scene?
No.
Okay, so the officer has come from the ship and he sees what the boys have been going through and they've been rescued, and he realizes what exactly is going on. That he susses it immediately that, oh geez, this is they've turned into little savages. So it says, he turned away to give them time to pull themselves together and waited, allowing his eyes to rest on the trim cruiser in the distance. Very British way to end it. Let's look away from what's going on.
right. Stiff upper lip. Right?
Yeah, that's right. My God, this is awful. Look at these little savages. The original line, as Golding wrote it, was, he turned away to give them time to pull themselves together and waited, allowing his eyes to rest on the trim cruiser in the distance. And he heard one boy's voice float from over the trees. Piggy, where you at? Oh, yeah, right. Shit, I forgot.
Poor Piggy.
Poor Piggy. Here's Charles Dickens again at number 7. Perhaps his best known story is what? Charles Dickens.
Hail to Cities.
A Christmas Carol, right? It is probably the most repeated.
Okay.
It's probably the most repeated radio versions, TV
Yeah, that's
versions.
true.
I saw an animated version as a kid. There's been multiple movies about it. And from 1843, the final line is really great. And so, as Tiny Tim observed, God bless us, everyone. Very simple. Dickens' original line was, and so, as Tiny Tim observed, God bless us, everyone, except the Irish. Dickens, man, he was appropriately named, man. Jerk. And Bryan, you and I have talked about this next one, so this should come as no surprise. Once again, this book shows up in our discussions. 1925's The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald.
Mhm.
The final line, which I am convinced is the greatest final line in American literature. So we beat on, boats against the current, borne back ceaselessly into the past. Beautiful line about dealing with history and just your personal demons coming to rest. The original F. Scott Fitzgerald line was, so we beat on, boats against the current, borne back ceaselessly into the past. Except for Jay Gatsby, that asshole.
Yankees suck. Wait.
Were you a big reader of like the Pooh Bear stories and Christopher Robin stories by A. Milne when you were a kid?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, I had the little four like slipcase books, and the final book in the series is called The House at Pooh Corner from 1928. And it's this wonderful sense of Christopher Robin growing up, and the final line is very beautiful and kind of brings a tear to my eye. But wherever they go and whatever happens to them on the way, in that enchanted place at the top of the forest, a little boy and his bear will always be playing. Just wonderful. This idea that childhood's a memory you can return to. Well, Milne's original line was, but wherever they go and whatever happens to them on the way, in that enchanted place on top of the forest, a little boy and his bear will always be playing and bathing in the blood of their enemies. Yeah, we're down to the final four. Another American classic from 1960, Harper Lee's To Kill a Mockingbird. This is the end of the book where Jem has been returned home by the mysterious Boo Radley, and Jem's arm has been broken, and Atticus has resolved the issues of the night, and he goes in to spend the night just by his son's bedside watching him. So the he in the reference here is to Atticus. He turned down the light and went into Jem's room. He would be there all night, and he would be there when Jem waked in the morning. Okay, the eternal presence of the father, that kind of thing. Very nice. The original line, as Harper Lee wrote it, was, he turned out the light and went into Jem's room. He would be there all night, and he would be there when Jem waked in the morning. And boy, did he scare the shit out of Jem when he woke up, just sitting there staring at him, watching him sleep and breathe. Number 3 on the list, from 1859, once again, the final appearance of Mr. Charles Dickens, Tale of Two Cities, which you mentioned earlier, which is another great, just a fantastic last line. Because this last line,
far better thing, right?
That's right. And it
Yeah.
shows up in a lot of places, and people quote it, and sometimes they don't even know where it comes from. It is a far, far better thing that I do than I've ever done. It is a far, far better rest that I go to than I've ever known. As spoken by Sidney Carton, that he's replaced Darnay's place for execution. Well, this guy's giving up his life he's felt that he's lived this life of, just he's done nothing with it. So here he's going to do this noble thing. The original published version from Charles Dickens was, it is a far, far better thing that I do than I've ever done. It is a far, far better rest that I go to that I've ever known. And with that, he flipped them the double bird at maximum extension. So screw you. Good job on the editor's part, keeping it classy and
yeah, sure.
Picking that up. Yeah. Did you ever read the Anne of Green Gables books? As a kid, I always thought those were for girls, so I never really read those. They're written by Canadian Lucy Maud Montgomery, the story of Anne, an orphan who's taken in by a pair of siblings, Prince Edward Island, I think. 1908, Anne of Green Gables. Lovely final line. God's in his heaven, all's right with the world, whispered Anne softly. Very sweet, very nice, lovely.
Mm-hmm.
The original line is written by Lucy Maud Montgomery was, God's in his heaven, all's right with the world, whispered Anne softly. as she giggled quietly and ripped a hot, wet fart. And then the number one edited line on my list is from one of my favorite authors, the great Fyodor Dostoevsky, from 1866's one of his four major classics, Crime and Punishment. It's actually got a boring last line because, like Dickens, Dostoevsky wrote in serialized form. And so he says the last line is actually, and that might be the subject of a new story, but our present story is over. Very Russian. But he and the editors
go
made
to
it,
page 12.
right. The editors really chopped it off because he had a dynamite final ending. The original ending was, and that might be the subject of a new story, but our present story is over. Why are you still reading this? Go on. Go home. Shoo, close the book. Stop reading. It's over. Wow, wow. Wow, wow. And that is the list of the top 15 edited lines of famous pieces of literature.
Very nice.
Hey, Brian, you want to know something?
Hmm.
None of those are real. I made all of those up.
Well, I figured that out after the first
Okay.
one. I was about to be incredibly impressed by your research. Like, how the hell did you find all these? Wow. Oh, they're all okay. Gotcha.
This is you drink. This is you drinking coffee at 6:30 in the morning.
Oh, I know.
How can I mess with Bryan?
All right. Another one in the books. Thanks for listening, folks. We appreciate it. Go on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening to us. Give us 5 stars if you can, please, and shoot us a review. That's hugely helpful. Check us out on dreamidiots.com. I've got the whole list of all the back episodes there, including some merch. And we're on Facebook, Instagram at Dream Idiots. And if you have a story idea or a curse word idea or just want to say, hey, you can drop us a line at dreamidiotspodcast@gmail.com.
Sounds great. And Bryan, I think we've established which one of us is the idiot in this episode. Thanks for listening, folks. Be good to each other.
Bye.